Raise your hand if you've been here before. It's Thursday, and all the chatter in your comic groups is about the unexpected hit of the week that you forgot to pre-order. So you race down to your local shop, only to find the issue sold out, or worse, it's in the display case going for 4 times the cover price. Yeah, I've been there too. And that's why I trust things from another world. They're one of the largest comic book retailers in the country, with hundreds of items entering stock every week, from statues to comics and graphic novels, even manga. And new releases are always 10% off. But I love shopping their 50% off back issue bins to fill up gaps in my collection. Now, if you don't have an LCS, I recommend pre-ordering from their final order cutoff catalog. You'll save 30% on new issues that way. And you can find it at comicsaredope.com/FOC. That's comicsaredope.com/FOC. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is episode 28 of Comics Are Dope, the podcast. I'm really excited, as always. Now, if you're just tuning in, if somehow this is your first episode, you should know that in episode 27, last week's episode, I had a great conversation with comic book writer Greg Burnham. And typically when you hear the name Greg Burnham, it's followed by and Marcus Williams. Marcus Williams is an artist based in Atlanta, Georgia, who, along with Greg Burnham, is responsible for co-creating the property Tuskegee Heirs. And he has an amazing, anime-inspired style, a cartoon-inspired style that I won't be able to do justice over the course of this audio podcast. And believe me, I try several times during the course of this conversation to tell you what's so special about Marcus's art. And I'm pleased to say that after just having this one conversation, Marcus is just an incredible of a person as he is an artist. And I'm really excited for you to learn more about his personality and the things that drive him through this conversation. Before we do, the reason that we got together, the reason I had a conversation with Marcus, is because he has created this book called Eye Lie Popeye. And the story of Eye Lie Popeye will come together. You'll hear it on this show. I don't want to spoil it. But if Dragon Ball Z and Popeye had a baby, also named Popeye, and exactly akin to the original Popeye, it would be this. Eye Lie Popeye. It's a manga and anime inspired take on the story of Popeye losing his eye. You may have seen it online. There was a webcomic. There was a limited release of just the first issue, but it's actually getting a full series order from Massive Publishing, and issue 1 will be out on Wednesday, August the 14th of 2024. You definitely need to check it out. Go ahead and place your pre-orders. I think FOC on this book is June 3rd. So you need to place your order at your comic shops now if you want to guarantee that you get Eye Lie Popeye. I believe it's a 4-issue miniseries. So do with that information what you will. And without further ado, I'll present to you my conversation with artist, writer, cartoonist, Marcus Williams. Well, guys, my next guest, if you don't know his name, I'm sure you know his art. You've probably seen a few of his pieces just floating around the internet. And it's usually some sort of character mashup or a gender swap or some sort of new take on classic characters that we know from our childhood. But my next guest is a character designer, an artist, an illustrator, even a writer, and the co-creator of Tuskegee Heirs, and the writer and artist behind Eye Lie Popeye, which is upcoming from Massive Publishing. So welcome to the podcast, Mr. Marcus Williams. How you doing, man?
I appreciate it, man. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's no problem at all, man. When Massive reached out, I was really excited because you were one of the people on my list. And I was like, this is one guy I don't have any contact info for. So lo and behold, you pop up in my inbox and I'm like, yes, I would love to. Let's do it. But no, you are someone whose work I admire. I first came to know you or know of you because I went to Heroes Con 2022 was my first Heroes Con. And my man Danny was jokingly complaining about how you and Greg were just selling out of everything. Your table was always jumping. like just all the things. And he's like, Greg over there cheating because he got Marcus and all those posters over there to sell. And it's funny, I'm just standing there in Artist Alley, but it's true. Like the section that fourth wall was in, it almost felt like the sort of black row, but then y'all were kind of, if there was a row, y'all were like the L shape. And
Right.
so, but you could just see like the wave of kids that would come, like, oh snap, I got Goku, or I got the Boondocks, I got this. And that was where I saw your work for the first time. I was like, yo, this dude is dope. And I don't think
That's,
we ever even got to speak because every time I went up to your table, it was packed. But man, so
that's what's
again,
up.
I'm excited to have you, man. This is fun.
No, that's what's up, man. No, I think HeroesCon was my first Comic Con that I ever went to.
Mm,
When it all started, that was my first actual Comic Con, but I wasn't vending yet. I was just there supporting. But no, I was hitting everybody's table in Artist Alley. I was like, just yo, you dope, you dope. Oh my God, you dope. You make a living with this? How you make a living with this? And I was asking like 20 questions to everybody. But that's what's up. I
right.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh, there's no problem at all. So I wanted to get into just some of your origins, right? Like where you got started, how the art bug bit you, and how you landed in comics.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've been drawing as long as I can remember. I mean, like earliest years, 3 years old, man. But what I tell a lot of people is I wasn't good. I didn't care about whether I was skilled or good at it.
Mm.
And my brother always told me I was terrible. So he tried to take credit. Now he's like, if I didn't tell you how terrible you was, you wouldn't have been good. I was like, nah, bro, they don't work like that. They don't work like that. Um, but no, it's earliest memories, man. I think I drew on some furniture with a permanent marker at like 3 years old. I was proud of it.
Mm.
It was like a muscle man at the time. I was like, yo, this is a masterpiece. I got a whooping for it. My
Right.
mom she wasn't really, appreciative of my early skills. But no, as early as I can remember, and I got in trouble for it at school. I was far more interested in what was in my head than the homework I had to do or classwork or all that good stuff. So, but it kept me going. What I didn't know is that I didn't know I didn't know a term character designer for
Mm.
years to come. Like that was something I'd never heard of as a young artist. I just thought I like drawing. So, but even if I look back at my old stuff, which I found because I moved recently,
Mm.
um, it all features characters.
Mm.
That's the thing that kept me drawn and kept me excited. Even animation, Looney Tunes, Disney, you name it, Ninja Turtles, all of that stuff. Everything I saw was characters. So I would go and try to draw that. So throughout the years, man, video games are no different. Street Fighter was full of characters. So I
Mm.
would take the game manual, sneak that into my backpack and I draw all day at school, just try to draw. But I couldn't draw what I saw because I didn't have the skill, but
Mm.
it didn't stop me from trying. So eventually I got better. But I think even then I was just heavily driven by character art, character design, and I'm like, yo, that's dope. Looking at everything I saw
Mm.
and frustrated as I was, the first comic I got was drawn by Jim Lee.
Mm.
Somebody was like, oh man, Wolverine. I was like, what's a Wolverine? What are you talking about? And, Jim Lee was drawn at the time. It was the comic that had Wolverine and Omega Red split on
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
cover.
I think
Yeah,
that's
episode issue 4, I
uh,
think it was, something like
yeah.
that. And that's the first one I saw, dude. It blew my mind. I was like, yo, wait a minute. So you telling me this dude not only has, knives coming out of his hands, but he can get shot, can't die, can heal from everything. And the art was phenomenal. Jim Lee
Mm.
back then was, I mean, an art guy, dude. But I couldn't draw any of it to
Yeah.
save my life. But it didn't stop me from trying. So yeah, everything from there was just, you know, and I liken it to a kid that's passing by a martial arts studio.
Hmm.
I didn't have to be a student of that studio. As long as I can look and see what they were doing, I was trying it, verbatim as best I could. And
Hmm.
it was terrible, but it taught me, I want to get to that point. I want to draw like this one day. So it kept me going.
Got you. So did you take like any sort of formal art classes? You go to school for it? You just kept doing it?
No, I didn't. I don't. And this is the part where people don't believe me. And I'm like, why don't you believe me? Believe me, please. Um, I I had art classes all through, all of my academia and so forth, for all my young years and things. Anytime I did art, I excelled at it in
Mm,
school, but no formal training until maybe I was in 11th grade.
mm,
There was something here. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. There was a program called Governor's Honors Program, and it was a 6-week program. You got to go down south Valdosta, Georgia, for 6 weeks of your summer vacation. I didn't
man.
want to do it, but you got to go as a high school student to a campus down there, and for 6 weeks you would actually be instructed by college level professors in the thing that you excel in
Mm,
currently in high school and so forth. So of course mine was art. And I got to go down there for 6 weeks. I had drawing, sculpting, painting, you name it. So changed everything. That was my first formal training.
mm.
And the teacher that I had a drawing teacher only for 1 week, and she absolutely, rendered all of my skill to zero, and then taught me how to properly sketch and draw. So
Got you.
yeah,
So when you were talking about like just your influences, a lot of it's character driven, and you're just like, okay, whatever I see. So Street Fighter, Ninja Turtles, X-Men. But along the way, were there specific artists whose style influenced you as well, or
oh
was
yeah.
it mostly just character driven?
Before I knew how to, we didn't have the internet back then. So
Right.
before I knew how to identify artists, and that was when I think comics came into I thought Jim Lee, full name was Jim Lee Williams on the
Mm.
comic, because he was signing his name Jim Lee, but his
Right.
colorist was, Williams. And
Uh-huh.
so I was like, yo, this is fate. I'm gonna be like Jim Lee Williams one day. But I think Jim Lee, like I said, comics wise, that was the first artist. But for real, like Disney influenced me. I tried to draw Looney Tunes. I tried to draw everything I saw. But when it came down to comics, definitely, I had some major influences. So Jim Lee, of course, was first. I think, gosh, man, if you fast forward, I didn't know their names, but the ones that impacted, once I got to high school, Spawn came out.
Mhm.
So Todd McFarlane, and then Greg Capullo
Yep.
actually, influenced me more than I like Greg's art more than Todd's.
Mhm.
But that's because he penciled the book, or he was on the book longer as the main artist
Yeah.
than even Todd. But then Joe Madureira.
Mhm.
Joe Madureira, I think that's when I was old enough in high school to actually purchase. I had some money,
Yeah.
so I would, if it Joe Mad was on it, I would buy it. And I
Mhm.
literally just bought like a stack. I went to C2E2
Okay.
not too long ago, and I found nothing but Joe Mad old school books. Man, these are the same ones I bought when I was a teenager. So I was like, yo, this when I bought this, And so I followed Joe the longest in terms
Mhm.
of just trying to emulate or learn. But as I was like learning from like Spawn, everything I drew was like dark and gritty,
Mhm.
and brooding. So in high school, my teacher was like, Marcus, is everything okay? And like, yeah, no, what's up? Because I think I had to draw like a bear, like
Uh-huh.
a teddy bear, but he was like in Spawn style. So everything was like full of like black, and it was heavily inked and all that texture.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I think I studied Joe's work the longest. But I even then I was like, I want to get good enough to draw what I see.
Yeah.
And if you go back into old school art, you had a master and
Mhm.
you had an apprentice, Jedi and Padawan kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
And the goal was you tried to strive to get to the skill of your master, and then you can surpass them or take it in a different direction once you got to their level. But that was the trick, man. As a young artist, I'm like, I don't know how they're doing this. I didn't study anatomy. I was just reverse engineering what I
Mhm.
was seeing in the comic. But you do that enough and you will get skilled,
Right.
especially if you're drawing every day. Like I said, getting in trouble for it, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think Joe I studied the most. And what I learned from him was dynamic anatomy, right? Because you can't see someone's abs through a skin tight suit, unless it's painted on maybe. But that's the kind of stuff to where the more I drew, he was, super, super high energy, great design, man. He didn't just draw characters. He understood character design. So when he redid the design for the X-Men, that set the tone. That I didn't realize I was witnessing history, but he set that style for years to come. And everyone was like, yo, and there were so many copycats. I didn't want to copy Joe Madureira. I wanted to actually learn to get to his point, and then I would deviate. But even then, I didn't understand that as, like, if you look at Bruce Lee, he had 3 different masters. Bruce Lee was trained, throughout his young life. But then he created Jeet Kune Do, which was an amalgamation of all of this training, but he took out what he didn't like, and he put in what he wanted to put in, and then you can mesh into something of your own style. So now I can switch back from realism to cartoons to comics to whatever in my character design. And so people say, well, what is your style? How'd you get to your style? I was like, I think I took in everything. So now I can literally just kind of, piece whatever I want, depending on the result. I can piece any of those styles together now as an illustrator for so many years and say, well, I want this result. So, but yeah.
And how long have you been an illustrator? Not to age you or nothing, but.
I'd say professionally, I started in 99 because I graduated, and then I got lucky enough to do my first freelance for Cartoon Network for Powerpuff Girls. Not on my own. Yeah, I was like, not on my own merit. Now I didn't apply to the job. I got incredibly lucky. I was working at the movie theaters. I tell this to every time I go to a school. I was working at the movie theaters at the time. A young lady that I went to school with, she graduated 1 year before me. She's, so I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? She's like, hey, you still drawing, Marcus? I'm like, yeah, I'm still drawing. She's like, you should meet my uncle. I'm like, that's a weird thing to say to a grown man. Why should I meet your uncle? He's the art director at Cartoon Network. I was like, we should go meet your uncle. I get off at 3. And so sure enough, we go do that after I get off work. I went to his house, met him, showed him my little I was not professional at any rate, but I knew how to draw. So I showed him a sketchbook. He's like, yeah, I think I can get you some work. He said, have you heard of the Powerpuff Girls? I was like, no, what is that? And he puts in a VHS tape and shows me the intro to the Powerpuff Girls cartoon. And I'm like, okay, some wop-headed girls, no fingers, no problem. What you need? And they were trying to actually put together a comic. The show was already popular. I just didn't watch it. Yeah. So, they needed some comic art. That's what I did for them for like 3 or so months. The best money a 19-year-old had ever seen. So that started my freelance career. And so illustration was just kind of like the next domino to kick over. So people, can you draw my dog? Can you draw my grandma with a dog? Can you draw this? And so I'm like, yeah, I can draw that. It's going to cost you money though. So I did that literally, I think that was the start. Around 99, 2000 is when I started doing freelance. Fast forward 10 years, I was like, well, I don't get to keep none of these this art isn't mine. I need to come up with something on my own. So that it just, as a freelancer, you learn that it's literally mercenary work. You get the job, you do the job, they pay you, and you walk away from it. And then you're like, right. Next job.
So you've been freelancing. I mean, you've basically been freelancing since you graduated, which that's crazy. Most people work some corporate job or some whatever job.
I did.
And kind of. Oh, okay.
I did. No, I had a day job. I didn't start living full time from my art until I got laid off. I think it was 2007 when the economy in America kind of fell through.
Yeah.
And so everyone was getting laid off. So my wife at the time by the way, the lady that came to the movie theater and said, you should meet my uncle, that was the woman I went on to marry. So, it worked out. So that's why I said I was really lucky. That's not a normal way to get your job. So super, super lucky with that. But yeah, after that economy thing, I couldn't get a job. So freelance is what I actually fell back on. And I just pushed really hard and found some good clients and paid, never really looked back from there, man. So
Awesome.
yeah.
I, I'll pause this at this point,
Okay.
just for the illustrators in the group or in the audience, right? How is it, like, practically speaking, growing a freelance business, one in a down economy, but a freelance business on art? Like, how do you even go about finding clients and balancing between sitting at the art board and going and drumming up new business?
So again, my journey is like to chronicle what happened and then look back and say, well, all you got to do is, I don't think it would be fair, man, because you have to understand there's a journey for everybody individually as a person. You have to actually be comfortable with telling people what your job is outside of having an office job.
Yeah.
You have to be able to talk to people. I would go to the bookstore and draw, not trying to solicit my work for anybody, but people, oh my God, did you draw that? Are you an artist? I am actually. Yes. How are you? You know, and then having those conversations. So I think I picked up my first client in that juncture, because I was living on whatever work not workers comp.
Oh, unemployment.
Unemployment. I'm sorry. Yeah, but yeah, just surviving on what I had, man. But it was like you have to still get out. You still have to be out there and showing your work. But luckily, I found a really, really great client at the time who had nothing. She was like, she had a business, but all she had was a statue. She says, I need you to make a logo out of this. I was like, all right, it's going to run you this much money. But she had, when I say she needed a logo, she needed a children's book, she needed a coloring book, she needed character design, she needed music. I stayed with this client for almost 2 years, but she helped pay my rent. I wasn't hungry the whole time I was with her, but yeah, working for a client, usually if you get the jobs done, it cascades into other clients because they will talk and promote and get their business out there and say, oh my God, who did your logo? That guy. Who did your character design? Who did your coloring book? Who did your children's book? That dude. And so I get another job, and another job. So it's that's why I say it's unique for everybody's journey. I can say that I was readily available and open, and I stayed working. That's all I was focused on, because I knew what was counting on. I had 2 kids at the time at home, 2 babies at home, and so I was hustling, man. So when you're hustling, yeah, if you're doing the jobs, if you're pleasant to work with, if you meet the deadlines and the client has nothing but good stuff to say about you, it should be easy. Word of mouth is really powerful when you're on that grind in a positive way. So
for sure.
Yeah. So, I didn't have a smartphone back then either, so it was hardcore.
So fast forward a couple of years from these freelance days, and you meet Greg Burnham, right? And you guys' claim to fame is Tuskegee Heirs, but how did that come about?
Oh, no. See, I knew Greg back in 2000. So when I started doing freelance, I was working with Greg. We did a comic back in 2001, called Starving Artist. But that was organically, I was introduced to Greg through a mutual friend of ours, Nick. And so Greg was looking for an artist to work on a comic book that he was writing, but he kept getting catfished from artists that say they could draw, but they couldn't really draw in person. They wasn't really doing it. So no, I knew Greg way back before all this. But we did the comic. We didn't know the business of publishing or printing or anything. So we created the comic, and I we started like co-writing even then. And that's where we finished it. We printed it at this company called Kinko's. It's not called that no more,
right?
But we were paying $10 for each book to be printed at Kinko's. and we were selling it on consignment at this cool record store in Atlanta for $4. So we didn't know what we was doing. We was like bleeding money every time we sold one, but we were excited. But I was like, I came to the conclusion, like, dog, we can't keep paying $50 for 5 books. That's not gangster right now. So we need to learn about the comic game, and when we do that, we can return to comics. So fast forward, I started working on a comic book called Hero Cats of Stellar City right about 2011, 2012. Went all in. The goal was to get that book published nationally. We did that. It was a local comic store that I went into. The guy was like, "Hey, man, can you draw cats?" I was like, "I don't know. Maybe. Why? That's weird." But yeah, ended up working out. Got published through Action Lab Comics, things like that. So, but talking with that publisher, I asked 50 questions, and they were very open with the process of publishing and printing and comics and how to make it work. So from that, I went back to Greg and was like, "Hey, I know how to publish comics now, man." So, around, 2015, 2016, 2015 is where me and Greg were at a signing. Greg had I illustrated his children's books at the time. So we were at a signing, and a customer came up. I was selling my posters. Greg was selling his children's book. It was this older gentleman came up and said, "Hey, man, y'all got anything with aviation?" I was like, "Not really, but I had some young heroes. I was taking young Black superheroes and I was taking Marvel, DC superheroes that were Black and making them young."
Got you.
And so I had that on the table. I was like, well, I was thinking about doing some young Tuskegee Airmen and adding that to my young heroes line. He's like, "Oh, man, that'd be dope. Go ahead and do that." So Greg is like, "Yo, we should probably write that up." I said, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Some young Tuskegee Airmen." And within like a weekend, man, we had the name, Tuskegee Heirs. We had the premise. We pushed it into the future. As soon as we pushed it into the future, I was like, "Yo, we need transforming robots, dude. That's that has to be there." So, but yeah, came up with it from there, and it was like I was like, "Give me like a week. Let me do some character design," and I posted it to social media. And it went crazy. People's like, "If this is what we think it is, shut up and take my money. Where is it at? Where's the Kickstarter?" So that was a start of that. It was 2015.
Yeah, to say it went crazy is an understatement, right? Like, not only did the Kickstarter garner almost like 75 grand, but like I got into comics in 2019. I'm relatively new to all this. The discussion around Tuskegee Heirs is so heavy that I was telling Greg this in the last episode, but I'm in these Black comic groups on Facebook, and people are getting these arguments like, well, who's like Black and Indian really doing it? And it's always qualified with, and you can't say Tuskegee Heirs. Like, they don't count. It's like, it's a movement, right? Like, here we are almost 10 years later, and it gets recommended like tip of the tongue, like, and it's dope. Like, I have it right here. And this is the Flames of Destiny trade paperback. This is issues 1 through 4, 3.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
1, 2, and 3, yeah. And this book, like, when I grabbed it, I didn't realize how quote unquote old it was, right? And it doesn't read. It doesn't have like an age on it. It doesn't look dated in any way. Like, I mean, I guess partly because it's set in the future, but it looks just as relevant now.
That's
right.
Awesome.
Like, this is dope. Like, and it still is something that I'm like, this needs to be animated. this needs to be in more places.
Yes. I agree. That's the thing. I'm still waiting on like a money truck to just park outside and break down. Like, the driver just leaves it. I'm waiting on that.
Right.
Throw some money at an animation studio.
Yeah, animation is no joke. Like, it's crazy expensive.
Right.
But man, yeah. So Tuskegee Heirs hit the streets and has not stopped hitting the streets since. Like I said, you guys are a staple on the convention circuit, and y'all go through those books like nobody's business. And it's not just the books, like I said, your posters and like everything that y'all have, like the Greg Burnham Marcus Williams table is like the spot at a con. Like it's just jumping.
We try. Like we just, we try to be pleasant, say hello to
Mm-hmm.
everybody. Um, but yeah, I think that was the coolest thing is it doesn't stop. When you in publishing, and I talk to a lot of upcoming young artists or young, I want to do my own comic and I'm like, well, you got to treat it like a business, number one, but going to a show, it's like you're the product,
Yeah.
right? And I said the byproduct is that comic. But I'm like, you have to treat it like it's a kid. Like you got a brand new baby.
Mm-hmm.
You're excited about it, but it won't. You have to actually work harder once you get that kid in your hand. Like you have to literally nourish it, keep it in front of all of the potential doors and opportunity. It won't succeed unless you push it and push and push and push and push. So every year, man, year after year, even this many years later, we're still running into new customers, new fans, because anybody can be a customer. But a fan is someone that's like, I've never heard of this, but I'm going to tell my mama, my daddy, my uncle was a Tuskegee Airman, and they're on fire because this is the first time they've seen it. So if we don't go to the shows, we won't make that fan. A fan is far more long reaching than a customer. They're not just buying it and giving you money. They're going to share it. They're going to recommend it. They're going to follow your page. They're going to come back the next year to support you again, right? A customer is 50-50. You may or may not see that customer again. But if it's a fan, and so I try to go to shows to make fans because what we're doing is purpose. We're not just selling super guy, Superman or Spider-Man. I draw Miles Morales, but I draw what they didn't show Miles Morales doing in the movie, which is spending time walking from the grocery store with his family.
Right.
Or, at the gun range with his dad. They didn't show that in the movie. Yeah. But I try to draw those things. So everything that's on the table has purpose. So if it resonates with a customer, then they're going to say, I want to support you because your art spoke to me and da-da-da-da-da. And so that's the reason we go to every show, man, with that mentality. So it's worked out. For sure. It's worked out. Yeah.
So, I mean, a hallmark of Tuskegee Heirs, obviously, right? Like it's got the historical connection to the Tuskegee Airmen. It's got young leads. And so it's like it's this perfect blend of like, your grandmother will love it and you'll buy it for your kid, right? Sight unseen. And your kid will just eat it up. But there is definitely something special there, just that sort of that point where it's like, you're giving people an experience they haven't had, right? Especially when we talk about like Black people representation, feeling seen, feeling welcome, right? And again, it's a magical thing to watch. Like when you see a kid, I was at North Carolina Comic-Con and my man Wally McNair, I don't know if you know each other, but he does character design and illustration as well, and he's got some of his own indie comics. I want to say he'll be at Heroes Con this year, but anyway, he did a fan art. Yeah, he did an art print of it's Miles Morales, and there's this kid who comes up to him and like sees the picture, and he's wearing a full Miles Morales costume, and he's just like oogling over the picture, like, "Oh, I don't have any money, but wow, that's really cool," right? And it's those moments where it's like the little Black kid didn't know that he could like be or have this experience, and so it just hits different. What does that mean to you to be able to provide those experiences?
Those are that term is such and such priceless. It really is like that's success to me. Money is great. Don't ever get me wrong. If y'all want to donate, that's great. I got bills to pay. Money is great. Oh, I made the most money on this job. I made a lot of money on. Money comes and goes though. I like to go to elementary schools. I like to talk to young people as often as possible. One occurrence is something like that where I'm going to take my kids to Wendy's or something just to get a burger. This is after I pick them up from school, and I drive up to the window and I'm ready to pay. This is, grown looking dude. He's like, "Is your name Marcus Williams?" I'm like, "Yes." "How can I help you?" He's like, "Oh man, you visited my class in third grade. This is a dude. This is a grown man with a beard, right?" And I'm just like, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah, man, you had a comic," and so I'm like, "Word." But if you do the math, right, 10 years have gone by.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So he's a teenager. He's probably 18 or whatever. And I'm like, yo, crazy. That's what's up, man. Yeah, good to see you again. How's it going? He said, "Oh man, it's good." He said, "I never forgot, never forgot you." Instantly recognized me randomly off of just coming up to the window. I didn't know this dude, but third grader, never forgot that experience. But when they say, what does that mean? I'm like, dude, you can't give me an award that's better than that. There is no achievement better than that. You've literally imprinted an experience more than just who I am. Representation is what you see, but this has stayed with this dude enough where he can identify me this many years later from third grade.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, there's nothing better than that. And I'm wholeheartedly already satisfied with my work as an artist. Why I do it has never been in question.
Yeah.
But when you have those moments, it's like, I can't stop doing it, even if I'm not just an artist.
Right.
I love creativity. So there's other aspects that I want to, I guess, explore creatively, career-wise. There's other things I want to do, but that is always going to stay with me. And that's a work that I'm very, very proud of, to say I've touched people unintentionally, because I don't draw for people.
Right.
I post it because I've already been fed by the creativity I did. I've already been fed by it. Look, I'm good. Here, look what I did. Y'all check it out if y'all want to. You don't have to like it. I love it because I already, I had a good time doing it. But sharing it is just a part of. I know that's like, if it fed me and it made me feel good, I want to just say, check it out.
Yeah.
And it's never been about, oh, I want the most numbers. It feels valid. You get validation if you get a lot of likes. And I'm like, hey, cool. A lot of people like that. That's what's up. But it's never been a requirement for me to create. So yeah, that's huge, man.
I was going to ask you, right, because obviously, like, blackness is a central theme in your work, right? Like, we get a lot of, like, let's do this character. What if they were black, or what if they were gender swapped, or what if this thing that we all know just looked different, or maybe looked like you, right? You're based in Atlanta, right? Atlanta's one of those cities where it's like, no matter where you go, you see black people. You go to the hood, you see black people. You go to, like, the most affluent neighborhood, you're gonna see black people, right? It's just a very, black centric environment. But you're operating in comics, which is not, right. And conventional wisdom would say, to be successful in comics, you've got to find a way to, quote unquote, crossover or broaden your appeal, and showcase things maybe besides that. Has there ever been a temptation to do that? Or is that a goal for you at all?
It's you use the word conventional wisdom would tell you to do that. But when you step in, remember I said treat it like a business. So the only reason you would think that's true is if all of the statistics, all of your interactions, let's say you start a restaurant, right? You go and start doing research on restaurants and what makes it successful. You have a style of food that you do, right? Whatever. And you start looking at other restaurants that do similar stuff, right? You're going to research everything, how much they cost, what's successful, what kind of food, got any deals. And then when you start talking to the people that are fans of that food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they start telling you know what's missing though? Stuff that looks like us. You know what's missing now? Dang, I wish Marvel could really do this character justice.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I hate? When Marvel messes up a character that's black and don't know how to write for it. And you start listening to like reading the room, listening to the crowd. You're a fan yourself of the stuff you're creating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that there's a barren, wide open lane to say, well, why don't I just do what they won't do? Why don't I create what the industry says won't look good? And I'm like, I know it'll look good. Hold on. You know what? Let me not let me show you what it'll look like. It'll look like this. This is exactly what it'll look like. So Tuskegee Heirs is an example of, you can't tell me an animated series with 5 young pilots who fly cool futuristic jets that transform into giant robots that look up to Tuskegee Airmen won't look good. Yeah. Here, I'll prove it to you. You know, and quality is at the forefront of everything we try to do, everything we put out. If it isn't up to quality or standard, I'm not going to put it on the table.
Right.
That's one thing me and Greg have always agreed on, because unfortunately in our community, there is this mentality of just put it on the table. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Like, it does. Right. Because everyone else cares about quality in the industry. So you should have a quality, filter in your mind, because I'm fans of anime, great storytelling, Star Wars, this, that. I want mine to look just as good and still have a style of our own. But the conventional wisdom should be based on data, right? Not what society or what you heard through the grapevine or, hey, man, this may work good if you have 5 white characters and a token black character. You'll sell more books. Based on what? Where'd you get that from? What you've seen? Sure, if that's all you're basing it on, but not from, there's tons and tons and tons of black fans of comics, animation, sci-fi, you name it, fantasy. Yeah. But where's our Black Lord of the Rings, right? Where's that? I haven't seen a movie like that yet. Right. They may have it somewhere on like Sci-Fi Network. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's not there, that's your call to action. If it's an underserved, corner, nobody's selling what they're asking for, go and do it. Because if, McDonald's tries to make soul food, it's going to call it, Mick Yams. You know what I mean? They're going to try. It's going to be terrible. And then when the community pushes back, it's like, what the heck? What are y'all thinking? This is terrible. McDonald's going to say, oh, we tried. Y'all didn't like it? We'll just take it off the menu. Right. And they'll cancel the option. That's what happens in Marvel. That's what happens in DC. Well, we put the book out. Y'all didn't like the writing? Okay, cancel. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But not knowing that the writer was white, editor was white, artist was white. They don't know how to, and again, I think Denzel Washington said it perfectly. It's not about color. It's about culture. Right. Right? You can be the most fantastic artist in the world. If you don't understand the culture of what you're doing, it's not going to resonate with the persons that are of that culture. Yeah. They're going to look at it and be like, something suspect. This is sus. I don't like this. Right. We don't talk like this. We don't. That's not what a fade looks like. Why does that look like a Jerry curl in 2020, whatever? That's not how our hair looks like.
There's no blending on that fade.
Right. You know what I mean? The culture doesn't match. And so Marvel and DC will get frustrated and say, well, never mind. But they're getting better, much better now, thankfully, because I think they kind of understand the equation. And it's been getting a lot better. But for us and for me, I'm like, dude, I don't need permission to ever make a beautiful Black woman, because I'm a fan of Black women. I love Black women. I know why I love them. I love melanin. I love the hair texture. I love the lips. I love the curves, everything. But if you don't genuinely care for the things you're rendering, that's going to show up too. Yeah. You can be skilled all day. But if you think Black women are not beautiful, it's going to show up in your art. So,
For sure.
yeah,
So, now that's real. Now, before we move on from this, though, I
yeah,
wanted to ask. I asked the same question of Greg, right? So,
yeah,
Greg is now, doing other things, right? Like he hasn't moved on from anything, right? But he's adding things to the plate, working with other artists,
sure.
taking on like freelance assignments and stuff like that, right? And I asked
Mhm.
him about you guys' working relationship, and how he might contrast it with stuff that he does for other companies and stuff. How would you describe you guys' creative process?
It is definitely not what is practiced in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes trust to work the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say we meet and we're having a brainstorm session about the next story or storyline or whatever. I'm sketching as I'm talking. We're talking and I'm doing thumbnails, but there's no writing happening.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily. Greg has his keyboard or he has his iPad or something, and he's doing very, very rough blocking of, okay, so this happens, this happened, this happened,
Mm-hmm.
as we're having a conversation. But I'm thumbnailing and I'm very loosely saying, okay, oh, that'll be dope. This will be cool. And from there, the trust part is Greg will say, all right, so we're gonna have like a huge fight scene right here. And I'm like, okay, all right. So he's like, do the fight scene right here. I'm like, man. So what that means is he's not going to write the fight scene. We're not
Mm-hmm.
going to write the fight scene. I'm going to go home and conceptualize, and choreograph a
Mm-hmm.
couple pages of fight scene. He never has to worry or come and say, okay, let me see what you get. I go back and I come back and I show, like, here's that fight scene.
Yeah.
I needed to add another page though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it could breathe. The
Yeah.
fight scene needed, I needed some breath to make sure this action, because he'll be like, okay, we got one page. No, we need more than that. We're
Yeah.
gonna need at least 3 to 4 pages for this fight scene. And that's the kind of trust thing. Normally you'd have to script everything
Mm-hmm.
out, beforehand, before the artist ever, I should say, before the artist ever sees it, the editor and the writer have to
Yeah.
come up and they comb through the script and say, okay, this is going to be 2 to 3 pages. We only need 2 pages. Okay. But I'm co-writing and I'm drawing and I'm doing like director of photography in my head.
Right.
So I'm like, I got to make it, I've come, the first issue of Tuskegee Heirs was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be 22 pages.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up being 30 pages. So I was like, Dog, we need to show the actual robot transforming. We got a
Mm-hmm.
fight scene with 2 robots. I can't, it needs more space. I
Yeah.
ended up doing like, from 22 pages to 30. And
Mm-hmm.
he was like, all right, man, whatever, let's just go. So we weren't supposed to have a 30-page book, 30 plus page book. But that's the kind of trust where once I showed him why it was 30 pages, he was like, oh, that's dope. Okay, cool, let's run it.
Right.
So it's unconventional compared to the industry, not in a bad way, because I don't think we've had a moment. Well, we've had a couple moments where I had to validate some of the choices I was making,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "Okay, but nah, man, I don't think we should." I was like, "Let me explain. Let me explain."
Right.
And we'll have a back and forth. Story wise, we've had a couple good arguments, all healthy,
Mm-hmm.
um, because he really believes something about the lore that we set in place. It actually came from the pitch that we would do. When a new customer would come to our table, the pitch that we would say is man flight is illegal, right? In
Yeah.
the future that we're talking about. And so that lore, right, when we hit that in the storyline, he was like, we say it every time a customer. I was like, yeah, I know, but the reasons are this, and this. He's like, no. I was like, dude, let's just take this in. But we whittled it down and we
Mm-hmm.
came to something that we both understood. Now, it was against what he wanted initially.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't like that. I'm like, but you got to listen to what I'm saying. And I got my point through him, and it was nothing about my way is the better way. I'm
Right.
like, this, what I'm saying makes sense to the
Mm.
story. And eventually he was like, okay, you know what? Now that you say it like that, it does
Mm.
make sense. I'm like, okay, good, good. So we've had those moments as writers, because we both love the story, we both love the characters, but there's so many elements, man, that's not made it in that book
Hmm.
yet. And that's the thing where we're like, dude, it's fun to have two writers that are passionate about quality writing and story.
Hmm.
But you know, even then, if you can't respectfully exchange your point without disrespecting one another, now you know that's my brother. So we cuss at each other, we call each other names, all that stuff. We get that out, but at the
Mm.
same time, this like that specific one,
Hmm.
like he was genuinely like, nah, that's dumb. I don't like that. I was like, come on, man, wait, listen. And we just got through it. So yeah, it's still unique because I don't think a lot of people would have survived, some of the harsher um, arguments that we have about the actual brand or the
Hmm.
story and the lore. Because if you don't have that trust, then you're gonna actually fall back on, well, I was hurt by the way you said this was dumb. And
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, maybe it was dumb. Let me see. let me double check myself and let me come back to it. So yeah, we
Right.
have a unique way to do it. And I'm frustrated working with everybody else because writers and other publishing companies, they want to see a full script. And
Hmm.
I'm like, you don't need to see that, Brad. Let me just do some thumbnails, man. And they're
Right.
not used to that. They're not used to that. They want to see it and read it and understand what's going on. I'm like, I can tell you. I can
Hmm.
tell you right now what's going on. But that's not the industry's way. So it's a little frustrating.
That's funny. It's the word he used as well, right? When
Okay.
I'm not working with Marcus, it can be frustrating.
Right.
Brothers for real.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Well, we've been
yeah,
working for over 20 years together, so that does that. So that's the time and trust
yeah.
built. But it's been time and time where he'll say something like, "I trust you. Just do something cool,"
Hmm.
and I'll come back. And usually, 9 times out of 10, he may have like a color change. Like, I don't like that color on the shoes. I'm like,
Mm.
all right, well, what color, man? Pick a color, you know. But little stuff. It's never been like he's like, I don't like the design you came up with or something. So
Got you.
yeah.
Nice. So you said something earlier that I wanted to touch on. What did you said you don't need to ask permission to draw a certain thing,
Sure.
right? Like things that you love specifically.
Mhm.
And if you go scrolling on Marcus's Instagram, you will find all sorts of things that Marcus did not feel a need to ask permission to draw, right? Like fan art has been such a huge part of your story, and just your journey in art. And fan art has directly led to this thing we're here to talk about. But what is it about fan art? Why fan art as opposed to maybe original characters?
So I can say at the base of it, that's what character design, um, like I said, that's where it started for me. I
Mm.
was a fan of Disney, Looney Tunes, comic books, video games, Ninja Turtles. All of these brands influenced me as a young person. I just couldn't draw at the
Hmm.
time that I became a fan of those things. So a good example is, Ninja Turtles. When DMX passed,
Mm.
and I also have a thing where I don't like to draw what everyone else is drawing at the same time as everyone else is drawing it. I'm
Mm.
like, I'll figure out what's not being drawn and I'll draw that. But
Mm.
no, when DMX passed, I didn't want to draw DMX, so
Mm.
I drew an old Raphael, right? And he
Mm.
had DMX on his jersey,
Mm.
right? And this is like, I'm talking about like 68 plus Raphael with gray hair,
Mm.
right? And I posted that, and all I said in the description was R.I.P. DMX.
Mm.
That's it. That's all I was doing. Lo and behold, comments start flooding in, likes start flooding in. Yo, this is dope. Where's the rest of the turtles at? I was like, but you, I mean, yeah, I could draw the rest of them too, I guess. But old ninjas came out of that, which is I'm a huge Ninja Turtle fan. I was, when I say begged my mom for every toy I could, but drawing them as old, versions of themselves is absolutely derivative of my fanhood, right, of the Ninja Turtles for my entire life. But it came super easy. And the stories start pouring out, which is I drew Leo next. And so Leo's a retired, he's got a sword school over in Japan, and he's teaching people, and he looks, like he's been fighting for, like he's still in shape. But then I drew Donnie, and then I drew Mikey, and the story just kept pouring out. And so I just kept going. And so now I got over 10 pieces dedicated to what would the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles look like 60 plus, but it's so easy for me as a fan. So all of the fan stuff you see, most of it is because I'm like, it'll be dope if we caught up with Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory, and he's now in his early 20s. Love Dexter's Laboratory, couldn't draw as clean as I wanted to back then, but now I can. And so now there's a character design element. What would Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory look like as a 20-year-old? What would Dee Dee look like? What would it, So now the challenge and the thing that excites me is, oh, cool. I'm a fan of that. I haven't seen anybody. I'll Google it first too. I'll Google to see if anyone's drawn it. If no one's drawn it, I get even more excited. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be dope. Let me see. And I'll go into my character design brain. So now I'm having fun doing what I love to do character-wise, figuring out how to age up or make that thing contemporary, and then put my spin on it. And that's the writer side of me, which is suddenly the whole story comes out. I can do that in 2 to 3 paragraphs. I don't have to write a whole novel.
Right.
Dexter is now 22, but because I'm a fan of it, it just flows really easily. It's not coming from, I wonder what would happen if Dexter was 20. I know what would happen if Dexter was 20. If I get hired for that job, I know exactly what I'm doing. So that's all of it. Really, it stems from what excites me design-wise, what I want to see. If it's not been shown, that's cool. I want to design it. Let me see if I can put my spin on it. And then it's the easiest thing to resonate because there's fans of all of these things. These brands are worldwide. So I'm not the only fan of the Ninja Turtles or Dexter Lab or whatever.
Right.
So doing my adult versions of Boondocks, super easy. I'm not the only one that's done it, but my story is a little bit different than everybody else's. I know what I want to see as a fan of Boondocks if they was in their early 20s. Right. So yeah, that's how it all kind of starts. And then there's infinite stuff that I can do with that. So yeah.
Nice. And so, as we're filming this, it's the week after Free Comic Book Day. Yeah. I did my roundup on the YouTube channel last week, just all the books that were coming out. One of the books I was really excited about is this one. It's Eye Lie Popeye. It's being published by Massive. And this was a book that I was familiar with before because it had lived as like a web comic. Like part of it was published as a web comic. They had an issue that you could buy online for a while, and for whatever reason, because it was digital, and I was like, I want to have a book. Like I want a book, and then I didn't even know this was happening until Massive reached out and was like, hey, we've got this book coming out. You want to talk about it? I'm like, yes, but also like, where is it? Can I buy it? Like, and here we are. But we were talking about fan art for a reason. Yeah. How does Eye Lie Popeye come about?
Yeah, no. Again, easy stuff. I'm like, what if, who could hang with? I think One Punch Man had already come out. It was a huge fan of that. I'm like, what would make more sense though? If Goku, Dragon Ball Z, actually crossed over with Popeye, that actually makes more sense. And so I did the fan piece with, Popeye and Goku as though they had already finished their battle. So their clothes are already exploded off, but they're just laughing. And that one went viral. I did it probably 2 years before it went viral, someone shared it on the official Dragon Ball Z Facebook page. They didn't tag me, so I didn't know it went viral, but it had tens of thousands of likes on it, right? The people that own the rights to Popeye saw that on Facebook. Didn't know who I was, shared it on their Twitter. It went viral again on Twitter. Still didn't tag me because they didn't know who I was. Someone in the comments tagged me. And so then Alex, the person that, does the social media for King Features, he was like, oh, click, and, looked me up and said, hey, love your work, man. Love what you did with the Goku and Popeye thing. How would you feel about doing a few pages of a Popeye comic? And I'm like, yes. And yes, you say let's do it. But I was like, who's going to write it? He was like, well, we read your fan fiction about Popeye and this, that. And we looked at all your other fan fictions and he's like, we thought you could write it. I was like, that's funny because I can write it. Let's go ahead and do it. So super, super, super cool. Like really, really probably one of the most, I guess, exciting dream projects. Because who thinks that doing a fan fiction leads to, I'm like I said earlier, I'm not doing it for anybody else. This was for me as a fan saying, you know what would be dope? And then I share it. Never, the 2 years went by. I was on other stuff. I was on other fan fictions, working on all, and then to have that come back and land on my lap, like, oh my gosh, yes, for real, for real. You want me to, what parameters do I have? There's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't talk to the wrong one. I said, you have to reel me in now. So, but they were amazingly flexible. They were open-minded, and I pitched something, that I felt would be cool and would, they were worried actually. That was actually the funniest thing. And I had to be like, what's the problem? There are hardcore, diehard Popeye fans, man.
Absolutely. And
they do not want anybody messing up that character, dude. No. So my Popeye doesn't look, if you zoom in, my Popeye's anatomy looks different. He looks, not like cartoonish. Like he has muscles. He actually has, appropriate muscles. But as a fan, I'm like, I want it to feel attractive. I want it to feel good. I want it to feel contemporary, but I still want it to feel like Popeye. Yeah. And if I fail at that, I deserve all the hate. But only thing that I did was try to tweak Olive to look a little bit more attractive. A little bit, okay. But she still has all of the, her little noodle arms and everything else. So, but it was fantastic. It's been a wonderful experience. They have been the most phenomenal clients I think I've ever could ask for taking a character that's this old. Yeah. And then let them taking off their hands to say, be creative with it. I couldn't have asked for a better company to do that for. So it's been really, really rewarding because what I have planned for Eye Lie, man, is probably the most ambitious project I've ever written. Because if for people that don't know, Popeye didn't eat spinach in the comic strip. There was no spinach that he ate in the comic strip. He didn't pop, it's time to fight when he pops. That wasn't in the comic strip at all. But, things like the Jeep, that was there. So they the writer breaks down fourth dimensional beings in the comic strip. And it's trying to explain why this little thing is able to pop in and out of reality. And I'm like, yo, black and white comic strips with fourth dimensional beings in it. And so that ended up in the cartoon, but they put spinach in the cartoon and all. That's what a lot of people know. But I'm trying to pay homage to the little complexities as well as what everyone knows about Popeye. Right. And then I'm trying to put my little spin on it. So it's going to be some cool stuff, man.
Man, so Eye Lie, I thought it was a one shot. Yeah. What's the story? Like, how does Eye Lie now become a 4-issue mini?
Well, See, I'm trying not to tell all that business. I don't know what I have clearance to say. What I can
Mm.
say is, without getting any clearance, is that again, they started giving me slack and letting me come up with stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, dude, this could just be the beginning. Like
Mm.
if people like it, is what I said. If fans like it, I want to leave it at a point where the fans can request more, and then if they like it, then we can keep going. That was
Yeah.
a part of the conversation early
Mm.
on, because they were like, if people hate it, we just go, escort you
Right.
over here and protect you and make sure nobody comes with pitchforks.
Mm.
But if they like it, the goal was to say, well, what happens? What happens if they like it? Do you have more to tell? I'm like, oh, absolutely. As a fan of Popeye and as a
Mm.
fan of anime, because the goal was to make to me, I think Popeye, the cartoon, was our generation's Dragon Ball Z. We just didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he's fighting in every episode. So I'm like, if you pair this up with traditional manga
Mm.
and anime, dude, the storyline is easy.
Right.
Popeye has a whole bunch of stuff that he can fight, he can go through. And the thing I love about Japanese writers and directors is they understand character development probably better than anybody in the world. That's why they're at the top of the industry. Did you know Disney Plus added an anime section? I didn't know
I did
that.
not know that.
It's on there. I was
Huh.
just talking to my kids, like, why is Netflix throwing money at anime and Disney Plus is over here not throwing money at it? They added an anime section to Disney Plus. I didn't know that.
That's
Um,
crazy.
but for the right reasons. It is
Mm.
on top of the industry right now.
Yeah.
Anime is undisputed. Kids know it. Young ladies, men, children, whatever. It's at the top. You can't beat it. But it's because they understand character development, they understand writing, they understand stories. And I'm talking about stories that span 1,000 episodes.
Right.
So they have enough content to where they can wear that crown
Mm.
because of all of the work they've done. So I'm trying to, as a student of their work and an admirer of their technique, I'm saying, dude, apply that to Popeye. What you talking about? That's easy. Uh, and I think One Punch did a great job of
Mm.
taking the bizarre and funny nature of a character that can do anything,
Mm.
and then putting it in a quality package, saying with dope animation and dope action and dope this. So
Right.
yeah, it's to me it's really easy. So if you look at what can happen in a storyline like that, it's look at anime and then
Yeah.
say put Popeye in that and see what happens. I'm a huge fan of Dragon Ball Z too, so
Yeah.
it ain't nothing for me to keep going. If you let me keep going, I'm gonna come up with some crazy stuff. So
Man, there's a Princess Snake moment in this in this book, and I love it. It's
yeah.
funny because I was watching somebody else's just their review of all their free comic book day books, and I don't know if they knew the backstory behind this book, but what they said
Mm.
was this is like Popeye meets Dragon Ball Z. And that's a very apt comparison. I think what's really cool is like we talk a lot about this divide between manga and comics or whatever, right? But I
Mhm.
was watching this video and the dude, the mangaka, is that how you say it?
Mhm.
Okay. Who did Astro Boy
Yeah.
was like super influenced by Carl Barks and like Duck comics. And it's
Mhm.
like you can go and compare panels of Astro Boy to panels of Walt Disney comics and stories and Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck and all that,
Right.
and just see like so much shared iconography,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so for manga and Western comics, not even just like Western superhero comics, but newspaper comics, news strips, to have such a shared history, and then or for the strips to influence manga, and then for you to bring that manga influence back to a character from a newspaper strip, like
Right.
that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
dope.
But I'm a fan of all of everything you just said. I'm a fan of.
Right.
So it's easy to like I said, you take this, and then you come up with something that if it doesn't exist, it's not that it can't. It's just you gotta have someone that respects those for those pieces
Right.
to craft it into something new. So yeah.
I think Eye Lie Popeye probably, just thumbing through it, this might be like the best representation of why I like your art style. It's hard to put into words, right? Like what it is about your art. But there's a clear like manga influence in anime, right? Like you can see it um just all through here. I mean, like the speed lines,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
the cell shading, just the movement, the blurred line, like all of it. It's just exaggerated anatomy, all that, right? But I think what ultimately sells it for me, I don't know why this specific thing does it for me, but the way you do highlights, like
Oh.
the way everyone like
Yeah.
glows,
Right.
I don't know. It's something about that. The way you
Yeah.
add form with color. Just, I love it, man.
That's what's up, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I don't know. This is a podcast. I don't know why I try to describe art in an
No, it's
audio
okay. Yeah.
form.
No, you
But,
described it. Other people have called it shininess. Other people have called it, and it's to be honest, it wasn't in my art. At some point, I know when I added it because I started paying attention to other amazing colorists and digital artists. I'm like, how do they get this vibe, this ambiance, this global illumination to the character? And it was like bounce light, you had rim light, you had global illuminance, so forth. Like it was all these things that I didn't have in my art, but I knew how to color. I just didn't have those elements in it. So the more you study, the more, and that's why I keep telling people, I'm like, dude, I'm still a fan of many artists. But I still treat it like the Bruce Lee concept. Like just because I'm decent or I'm efficient at what I do, that doesn't mean I'm stopping.
Yeah.
There's stuff that I don't do well, and I know how to improve, but you have to still take time and work on your craft. And that's the thing where it's like, I appreciate people like my art. I really do. But I follow artists that I'm like, I don't know how in the hell they did that. Because I don't have the patience for some stuff. I'm like, I'm a concept artist through and through. I'm not spending 2 to 3 weeks on one piece. That's just not happening. Yeah. So I respect that kind of artist, though. I'm like, dude, more power to you. I'm gonna take a photo of that background and just rock it in somehow. So yeah,
man. So, and we haven't even really scratched the surface of your bibliography, if you will, right? Like just there's so many books under your belt. I'm looking through Little Rock Files right now, right?
Yep.
You've got this variant cover on the inside.
Yep.
There's so much work.
Too much at this point, man. I'm ready to take a break. I'm trying to get to Bali for 3 weeks in a minute. So, just rethink my life. What I'm gonna do for the next 10 years. No, just it's a lot. It's been a lot. And someone had to remind me that I did something for them a few years ago. I was like, I worked on you? Yeah, probably. What? Show me. What'd I do? Oh, yeah, there it is. I didn't know that was you. Good to meet you, man. Because once I finish the work, it just goes into the volume of my brain where I'm like, it's done. I got paid for it, so it's over, and I'm on to the next thing. So,
man, yeah, you had the Black Panther story in the Marvel Voices Legacy this year.
Yes, sir.
Which was cool because it's like going through your fan art. It's a concept that you had sort of done before.
Yeah,
but to be able to do old Storm and T'Challa with their grandkids, like that's got to feel special.
Yeah, well, it was the concept that if in an alternate reality, if they never got divorced, I hated the way they got divorced in the Marvel story.
Yeah.
So Black Panther and Storm Heritage was my fan letter, my love letter to Marvel, saying that was dumb that you made them get divorced. But here's what you missed, because you could have had a royal Black superhero family, okay, to show up to a situation in the Wakanda jet and come out. Storm is there, Black Panther's there. They have beautiful children. I'm like, the story is golden. What's wrong with y'all, man?
Right.
Omega level one of them is Omega level. Maybe both of them are Omega level. But I'm like, that's just, whatever y'all just chose to do that was dumb. But here's what it would look like. So I just designed the two kids. Abayoye, no, is it Abayoye? No, I'm tripping. Abayoye is for the Avatar thing. Chidike and Filami were the two teenagers I designed for Black Panther and Storm if they had their own kids. I didn't finish the story because I'm like, Marvel, hire me to do this.
Right.
Okay, because it'll be dope. Give me 6 issues, it'll be dope, trust me. But I got it right to a point where I was like, I know exactly what I would want to do to keep that exciting and expand on it. Yeah. And it would be its own, wave of awesomeness. But again, don't write it. Do it Ryan Coogler did and fall in love with the storytelling of a modern African, telling.
Yeah.
Wakanda has a beautiful breadth of all these cool things it could have had. What does the Royal Black Incredibles look like? Right?
Yeah.
What does that even sound like? What is the daily, dichotomy of king, your queen, your mom is Storm. She's a superhero. She goes and saves the earth and then comes back home and tells you a bedtime story. What is that? Right. I would watch, I would read, I would, fall in love with that if it was done right. And there was care to showing love. There is no love in Marvel Comics that shows Black people in love for a duration.
Yeah, it's true.
And a family at that. So I'm like, if you ain't gonna show it, I'm gonna show it. So but I did that years ago, man. I got it 2014, 2015, I think. So I need to update that.
Nice.
And I need to also Marvel hire me so I can do that, please. Thank you.
So, man. So Eye Lie Popeye, I think issue 1's out in stores in August, right?
Correct.
Awesome. And it'll be monthly till it's done?
I'm not even going to fall into that trap. The goal is to, publish it as often as I finish them. But I'm not going to prime. Marcus said it was supposed to be. I ain't going to fall into that. That's the plan. And that's what I hope to do. So, yes. Awesome,
man. And for the audience, if you didn't get the free comic book day preview, right? Eye Lie Popeye is this. It's manga meets news strip, like with amazing color. You got to see it because me describing it through audio is not gonna do anything for you. But it's basically an account, several accounts of the story of how Popeye lost his eye, and it's an excuse to draw some of the craziest situations and just wildest action. I don't know how did you even come up with the story idea?
Man, we had several conversations. King Features, me and Alex I think we talked for like a good couple of months before we got started, because I drew him right away and said, this is what I think he looks like. And he was like, oh, that looks great. But, we just went back and forth. And like I said, they gave me so much. It was a nice size sandbox. And they just said, do whatever you feel would be cool. What do you think would be cool? And it was like, that was one of the things that spilled, because I only had 10 pages initially. They said 10 pages. I had a 10-page story to tell. So Eye Lie Popeye it was a one shot, but it was depending on if people liked it. So with that 10 pages, I was like, I can tell something short and sweet. However, if they like it, here's what it expands to. That was the talks that we had back and forth. What does the rest of it look like? Yeah. So I pitched, and we had great multiple hour-long length conversations, man, where it's like, oh my God, that would be so dope. Because Alex is a huge fan of anime and manga too. So we was nerding out half the time and just notating, oh, that'll be dope, throughout those conversations. So him losing his eye was just supposed to fit in that 10-page story. And then what else would happen after that? Yeah.
Man, so, in this book, I'm just looking at the Free Comic Book Day preview, right?
Yeah.
But it's got everybody you would want to see in it. Bluto's there, Olive Oil's there, Wimpy's there, of course Popeye's there. I don't see Sweet Pea. There was a reference though.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
so it's coming.
It's
It's
coming.
good.
Yes, yes, absolutely. No, I'm gonna try to get everybody because I didn't know they had so many characters from the comic strip,
Mm,
but there is a wealth, and they presented me with a wealth of characters that I didn't even know existed. But I'm
mm,
like, ooh, I like that one. Who is that?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. I can use that later. I can use that. But I got to create original characters as well. So Judy Patootie
Mm,
is a new character that I created for this, and so I don't spoil anything, but she's a brand new character, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. I'm like,
mm.
nice, nice.
Wow.
But I have a development for everybody that's going to be in the book. Sweet Pea is coming, but I like the idea again. Um, I like the idea of making the fans feel like I care.
Right.
I'm not trying to reinvent Popeye to make him something that I want him to be.
Mm,
More so, I'm just trying to bring Popeye into a new um, contemporary skin.
yeah.
Because Genndy Genndy was going to do a movie, animated movie with Sony,
Mm,
and everyone got excited because you've never seen him in 3D.
right.
You've never seen him in that light. So that's I'm at the heart. I hated what happened with X-Men
Mm,
with Bryan Singer.
mm,
I don't know if you knew, he told everybody on set, don't read the comics.
right.
And I love X-Men. Love it. That was my first comic. So I hated the fact that someone got in a position to do something so monumental. It could have been amazing. And said, bump all that stuff that came before. I want to do my version of the X-Men.
And it happens a lot more often than you would
I
think.
hate it. I
I feel
can't.
like every time there's some new superhero TV something, that
Yeah,
quote goes around for a whole new set of people.
correct. Because they do. And it's unfortunately happened with a lot of Marvel movies.
Mm,
And they're wondering why a lot of people are upset with what happened in Phase 5. And it's like, they interviewed all of these directors and, oh, no, I never read the comic.
mm,
Never, wasn't a fan of comics. Never really. They told me I can do what I wanted. Cool. Didn't work out on a lot of occasions. So, but that's where I want fans to know that I'm genuinely a fan of Popeye, and I think for the right reasons, because I was a young boy
uh-huh.
watching Popeye, and I knew why I kept coming back. It was literally that was our Dragon Ball Z,
Mm-hmm.
but also the values that were in there, the storytelling, and the character development that really didn't get a chance to expand. Because
Right.
one of the first questions I asked for the Sea Hack, I'm like, so how does her magic work?
Mm.
And they're like, whatever needs to happen, that's how it works traditionally. So I'm like, perfect. So now I can make up a magic system. Got it. And that's exciting to me, but it doesn't upset the fans
Mm-hmm.
because it was never defined.
Right.
So I have room to play and still pay homage and still be creative. So
Mm.
yeah.
That's dope, man. That
Yeah.
is super dope. So,
Yeah.
well, I Lie Popeye, issue 1 is out in August.
Yeah.
More will follow. And like I said, I think it's a 4-issue series out from Massive Publishing. I am super excited about it. I'm so glad that this is something completely different from what you normally do, or what you're known for doing, I should say. But the fact that it's a beloved character, this is going to straight to the direct market. Like, I'm excited for what this does for your profile, whether you care to reach more people or do new things or whatever. I'm just like, now when I say Marcus Williams, people are like, who? I'm excited. This is gonna be cool.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Before I let you go, where can people follow you and see more of your work?
Sure. No, Marcus the Visual. Marcusthe Visual. Visual. Marcus the Visual is social media, Instagram, Facebook. X is what they call it now.
Mm-hmm.
My website is marcusthevisual.com. But yeah, you can find me on all social media with that moniker. So, but I'm Marcus Williams. It's just Marcus the Visual is at my AKA. So yeah, you can find me online. I will not stop drawing stuff, even though, like I said, there's other areas I want to be creative in.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing, I think, is the cheapest and most efficient way for me to get that dopamine hit of I can do one little image and it says a whole, you know, like you can piggyback on that for a week and say, oh, you know what the implications of this could be.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love art. It really does have its own legs. So creativity for me is always, I need that part sometimes because I don't have to write anything necessarily to share. This would be dope.
Right.
And you can comment and agree if you think so. But yeah, that's what you'll find if you find my pages. I do a lot of that. I do sometimes try to do what's popular, but I'm gonna do what I want, man. I want to see what I want to see, and if it's the industry doesn't show it, that's exciting to me because I love to debunk. Oh, an all black show. It's not. Our statistics say that we need to. No, that's not true. White people love the Cosbys. You know, white people watched A Different World. You know what I mean? And loved it, and love our culture just as much. And they're just as entertained. You know, so the lie is what they try to make you believe and what they show you on TV. The truth is, do it correctly, get the right people involved, the right creators involved, and you can resonate with everybody. So it doesn't have to just be, you know, Tuskegee Heirs is not just for Black people. It is absolutely a tool to help inspire young Black, you know, everything. But we've had all race, creed, color, age, third grade on up, inspired by that book. So no one can tell me that it wouldn't work as an animated series, a video game, backpacks, socks, drawers, you name it, hats, toys.
Right.
I've already seen the truth. No one can tell me otherwise. So I appreciate you, man, helping me to spread the word about it. And look out for Eye Lie, you know, and more, because you know you'll see it. I'm gonna try to do some things that maybe will push me to the edge of what are you thinking about, Marcus? Where did this come from? And then we'll see. We'll see if I back up or just keep going. We'll see. So
well,
hopefully I can blow up the internet a little bit.
That'll be dope.
Right.
And when you do, you're welcome back here anytime. This was great, man.
Cool.
Well,
Thank you, bro.
No problem at all. Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you guys for listening. So go ahead, follow Marcus at Marcus the Visual on all the platforms, even the one formerly known as Twitter. And you know, check him out, see what else is going on. And you'll be at Atlanta Comic-Con, right?
Atlanta Comic-Con, no. Momo Comic-Con is at the end of this month.
Okay.
I'll be at BlurredCon. I'll be at DragonCon, things like that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, you can check the socials to see the convention schedule. Get you some Tuskegee Heirs action. Look out for Eye Lie Popeye coming in August. Well, thanks again for your time, Marcus. And for all those of you listening, not sure what you're doing after you finish listening to this, but make sure it's something dope. Peace.